Well, welcome everyone to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross, where we are your resource for education, connection, and collaboration. And I am super excited to have Megan North with us today. Megan's warm and dedicated approach as a speaker, facilitator, and coach shines through as she seamlessly blends her expertise in the corporate world with her passion for spiritual guidance. She's got a background that is rich in certifications and experience, including certified health and wellness coach, a certified theta healing practitioner, and a master certified practitioner and coach of neurotransformation therapy. So Megan really brings a unique perspective to her work. And last time we had Megan was here, we had talked about her self tool and coaching, and now she has expanded even more into the spiritual realm. I don't say expanded, but she's brought her businesses together. So Megan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Laura. I'm really excited to be here again.
So tell me, what inspired you to merge your expertise in corporate coaching with the spiritual guidance to create your unique approach?
Interestingly, I had a session, a half an hour session with a woman in the US who is an Irish mystic, and she's a spiritual healer, but she's based in the US, and she's beautiful. I've followed her for a long time, and I've done a few little courses with her as well. And I did a half an hour session with her because I needed to get a little bit of guidance on what was happening in my business. And as she started to talk to me, she said, all of you guides and all of my guides keep saying, it's all in your name, it's all in your name. She said, what do you think that means? And I said, funny you should say that, because I said a few weeks ago or a few months ago, I actually Googled my name to see if megannorth.com was available, because it's not often that your name is available as a .com. And it was, so I bought it. And she was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. No wonder they're saying this. And so it was a bit of a prompt to merge the two businesses that I have been, I guess, trying to balance, I guess, and straddle. I feel like I've been straddling two worlds for a long time. The spiritual healing business, the woohoo that we all call it in corporate. And then the corporate side of me as well. And it just felt like it was just time to just bring everything together, and just come back out, I guess, like relaunch myself as me. And the funny thing is that when I was talking to her through this process, I said to her, it's really funny because the last couple of months I've been talking to a lot of women in corporate to see whether they need some coaching. What do they need? And I said to her, and all of them have said to me, Megan, I don't need a coach at the moment, but can I book in for an angel card reading? And so it was one of those moments as well for me that I realized that actually majority of my clients who come to me for readings and healings are all in the corporate world. So actually these two things can exist together.
Nice. So now that brings up a couple of questions for me.
Yeah.
One, what did you find out about your name? What does it mean in your name? Or does your name stand for something? I mean,
Megan is like about strength and support and courage. So I already knew that Megan was about that.
Okay.
But I think it was just more that I realized that actually I need to just show up as my true authentic self. And I feel like that particularly, I don't know what it is like in the US, but in the corporate world, particularly in Sydney where I am, where I used to be, I suppose, the whole woohoo and the, don't talk to me about that. It has been in the past very, you just don't talk about it. And so I felt like that sometimes I was in conversations or I was in situations where I didn't feel like I could actually be my true authentic self because I was very corporate in the corporate world and I was very spiritual in the spiritual world. And so I think just by relaunching as my name, it was one of those, I don't know, I just felt like, you know what, it's time to actually just show up as just me as a holistic person. And I think a lot of the listeners, and you would know this too, is that when we have this spiritual side, we still do use our intuition and tune in. So when we're talking to someone, I pick up straight away whether they really want to hear about the woo, or if I mention it and then I get that feeling of, I don't need to really talk too much about this. anymore. I think it's a little bit like religion. So in the sense of sometimes you get that feeling, let's not just talk about religion because it's just that I don't know, that subject that not everybody likes. So I do use my intuition and tune in, and sometimes I think, okay, I've said that I do oracle card readings or angel card readings. I'm a holistic healer, but people sometimes look at me and I think, you know what, I don't actually have to bang on about it, and I move on. So I think just in my name, it's just that it's given me the courage to just be that really authentic self and to show up holistically.
Yeah. And now I haven't worked in the corporate world in many, many years, but I have learned from that experience and from most people that I've met that they always have had that kind of, they still call it woo woo. But what I have found is that a lot of people, whether you call it woo or not, are starting to say, hey, there's something to this and we need to check further into this. And you talk about intuition, which really all of us have. It's just a matter of whether are you really listening to it. Maybe some people just say something just didn't feel right, but they don't understand why it didn't feel right. Or maybe the hair stood up on your arms for some reason and you just got a funny feeling. But unless you like really dig into it or look at it, you don't realize that it's your intuition or something trying to tell you something's wrong or something's not right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or when people say, I just, I feel it. I trusted my gut. And I mean, as we know that the gut is now being called our second brain because it has so much intuition in the gut. And so, it's that exactly. Yeah. I completely understand.
We get those old stereotype things that we like want to hang to, and it's like, that's just it. But it's like, no, there's more to this. Look at it. But, yeah. What would you say? Can you share with us what drives your passion, your deep passion for self-development and personal growth, and how it's shaped your coaching philosophy?
I love learning more and more about myself. I love really digging deep. And I love that feeling of having an aha moment in yourself when you might do some coaching, or I'm doing a session with someone, or I'm just pulling some cards. And I love that feeling of, that's why that's been happening, or, that's why that lesson that I've been learning. And I don't know, I just think I want to make sure that I'm always going to be the best version of myself. And so I don't think that you can do that in, being stuck. Like
Right.
you can't just be in one place and think, well, I mean, some people can, that's fine. It's that's their version. But for me, I feel like that I constantly but I want to continually grow. And I think people are just so fascinating. People fascinate me. I mean, I fascinate me. And the things that I think of, I think, oh my gosh, where did that come from? Or why did that person say that? Or how did you think that? And so I think that then translates into when I'm working with clients, because I'm so fascinated by people's stories and what they do and how they've gotten there and why they think that they do. And so I think that when I'm coaching or healing or doing, working with clients, I just want them then to have those aha moments and those beautiful moments where you think, oh, okay, yeah, I can really feel that growth. I can see that growth. And what an incredible blessing and privilege it is to be part of someone's journey. I mean, I just think it's amazing.
Yeah, I do too. I think I love learning, like you. I love learning and doing all that, and it is fascinating. But of course, you have different. You're tuned into your intuition and different things, so you definitely have a different perspective that you can provide people, which I think is beautiful. So, angel cards. What exactly is an angel card reading? So, what kind of happens when someone comes to you for that?
Yeah. So I predominantly use oracle cards, and so most people know tarot cards, or tarot cards are usually probably universally known more than oracle cards, I think. Tarot cards are a very specific set of cards. There's 78 cards in a deck, and there's a certain way that the cards are done. Whereas oracle cards they can really be of any divination, any spirituality. You can have as little or as many as you want in your deck. So, but fundamentally it's the same thing. I mean, there's just messages. I call them angel card readings, I think, because when I do a reading, I start to really connect to, I feel like I have a lot of angels around me, and I actually start to channel. So when I do a reading with a client, it's quite funny, particularly if it's a new client and they've not had a reading with me. I constantly say to them, I'm going to always keep asking you, does that make sense? Because once I start to channel and once the angels start to really get, because I hear, once I start to get the messages, if I think about what's coming through my head logically, I would be saying, I can't say that. I can't ask them that. That's crazy. But I'll have to just trust it, and it just, all this stuff blurts out in my mouth, and my clients are like, And so the other thing that I do at the beginning of a reading, I think it's really important that when you have a reading, I don't want people to think that I'm being led by what they're telling me, because people can be quite skeptical, and I get it, because I have been to readers sometimes and I think, I think you're making some of this stuff up. There are some people out there that say that they are what they are, and sometimes they're not. So what I do is at the beginning of a reading, I'll say to my clients, put your intention in your head, like have a think about what you would like some guidance on, but don't tell me. And we go through like maybe 2 or 3 cards first, where I start to pull them out and then I start to channel. Before then I say to them, okay, now you can start talking to me, because I want them to kind of have a validation first of them having not said anything to me, and me then validating, okay. And an example is on Saturday, I had a client, she actually came here to my home, and after 3 cards, she was going, can I talk to you now? Because she was so excited that every card that I had already pulled out, she's just like, oh my gosh, can we go back to card 1 because it means this, and card 2 means this, oh my gosh, and she couldn't believe it. But it's nice, because then at least then I feel like I've got the trust of the client, and also then I feel like then we get a really good momentum, because they're very open, and then the channeling really starts, because the angels are there and they're sort of giving the messages. So I do different types of readings. So I just do a general reading. It's an hour. It can be of anything. I also do a 12-month forecast reading. So that was what the lady came for on Saturday. So we go through, usually the forecast readings are at the beginning of the year. People want to know what's going to happen for the next 12 months, but I can really do them at any time. So she came to me on Saturday, and so we went from July then to June next year. So I pull a card for each month of the year, and then the story is incredible. Like what comes out, it's quite interesting. I use 3 different decks of cards as well, but it's really interesting because they all start to line up. And even though they're different oracle card decks, they're all still telling the same story, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Because when a message wants to be given, it will be given. So yeah, it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful experience. I love it.
Yeah. And truth be told, so I used to always be one of those skeptics. I didn't have, my family was not like introduced to that. You see the typical stuff on TV and we're like, yeah, okay. So they're Googling on the other end and telling you this, and that. But it's really different when I have met so many people now that will tell me that they can see my own angels and stuff around me. I may not be able to see them, but when you're skeptic, you go in there like, yeah, I'm not saying this and that. They need to figure out. But when they start talking to you and asking you stuff that you've never talked to them about, and it's like, okay, hold on. And then if you start meeting people like I have all over the world, and you start getting the same feedback, and I've never met these people before.
Yeah.
You have to be able to, you have to open up to say, okay, there is something, there is something to this,
Yes.
and so it's really amazing. That's why I always tell people, as long as you have an open mind, it's amazing what you can learn or discover and find out.
Yeah.
So when you do your readings, you don't necessarily have to have the people in the room, correct? You can do them.
I do them online as well. Yeah, I've got a client that I often do a lot of intuitive coaching and readings for her. She's in Ibiza. I've got clients in the US, in the UK. To me, it's just energy. Energy is energy. So as long as I've got their permission to tune into them and to do the work with them, it doesn't matter whether we're online now or whether they're in the room. So it's just the same. And if I do it online, then I can actually record it as well for the client. So some people like the recording, but some people say, no, I don't want the recording. I know I'll remember what I need to.
Right.
But yeah, so it's very flexible that way as well, which I love because it's just energy at the end of the day.
Yeah. And you just touched on another important word, like you said, with their permission.
Yes.
Because a lot of people think when you do that, you're just in your head and in their head, or they're going to do this, this, and that. But
Yeah.
a true person that has respect, yeah, they will always ask your permission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And the thing is that if they've booked in and they've paid for a session, I know that I've got their permission.
Right.
So we don't have a conversation of, can you sign a form because I've got your permission?
Yeah.
But yeah, but if I'm talking to a friend at lunch, or if I'm generally talking to someone, I still do you want me to tune in and ask and see what I pick up? And some of my friends say, yes, please. I was hoping that you would ask that. Or some would say, no, I'm all right. And I go, okay. So I don't. So it is. But I mean, permission is a very, very important when you're doing that type of work. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you ever have anything come to you like unexpectedly that you didn't plan, or that might draw you to somebody and maybe you never even met that person?
Not necessarily people that I haven't met, but I do. I'm told I'm told things because of hearing, like being clairaudient is my biggest strength, blessing, gift. I don't know what you call it. So I will, all of a sudden, someone will pop into my mind and I'll be told something and I'll think, oh, so I'll either check in with them, give them a call, or usually they'll call me and say, hey, can we have a chat because this is happening at the moment. And if it's somebody that they know that, I can tune into them, I'll be saying, oh, well, I was expecting this call because I was tuning into you this morning, when I was making the bed and you popped into my mind, or something like that. But yeah. It's more of I don't really get the specifics. It's just more the person will come to me somehow, some way, and there's a reason why I need to reach out to them or speak to them. Yeah. It's lovely, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of that's got to be very interesting to be able to do that. And from what I understand, there's a lot of us, I guess, that have the ability, but you have to be open to it and really pay attention. Which some of us, I think, we get so caught up in the busy day to day that we don't hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all born clairvoyant and clairaudient. Like, we're all born to be able to see, like to be like mediums and that sort of thing. My mum used to always say that I had lots of imaginary friends, but now as an adult, I know that actually I was seeing spirit. But then as I became a teenager and became closer to my 20s, I started drinking alcohol, and that actually blocked so much of my intuition. And it wasn't until 12 years ago when I stopped drinking that actually things started to really crack open for me again, because the cleaner I am, the better I am at hearing and just feeling and trusting my gut, and, all of those feelings. So I think and the other thing that I think that comes in too is that it's fear. Like, a lot of people think, oh, people say, aren't you scared? And I think, well, I've got nothing to be scared about. Like, I trust all the beautiful angels and guides around me. So everybody's there just to support us and to love us. So I'm definitely not scared, but fear definitely does block a lot of people's intuition as well.
Yeah. I don't know if it's fear of the unknown or not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think, particularly, if you feel like you can't control it as well, I think, when people feel like that's not in their control, then that fear comes in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Well, I know we have a lot more to dig into about this, especially about how the holistic healing is going to play in achieving personal and professional fulfillment. And you also have new and exciting news to share with people. So, but we need to take a quick break from a word from our sponsors, and we will be right back.
Hey, hey, we got soul. Oh yeah, we got soul.
Well, welcome back. So, Megan, we were talking about blending the practical strategies from your corporate background and spiritual insights of angel cards. In your opinion, how does that holistic healing play a role in achieving personal and professional fulfillment based on your work with clients in both realms?
Good question. So I think it comes back to the question that you asked me before about why do I love doing work on myself and that growth. I think that I believe when you're doing coaching, like straight coaching, I think that it's really practical. I can do straight coaching with some clients that it's really practical, it's very logical. But if you can open your mind and you can have a little bit of faith in relation to what else could be possible, bringing in the intuition and the more spiritual side of things, then we can actually then start to look at what has happened in your past, or what are your beliefs, what do you fundamentally believe in that could actually be blocking you from then being the best version that you are. So the theta healing that I do, I work with the theta brainwave. So we're in a theta brainwave between the ages of 2 and 6. And that's actually when we take on all of our belief systems. Now, when you think about when you're between the ages of 2 and 6, I don't think I necessarily had my own belief system. I don't think I did. And most likely my belief systems that I took on subconsciously or unconsciously were my parents, my grandparents, the neighbors, your friends' parents. And so we go through life and we have these unconscious beliefs that sometimes may not serve us as we get older. Not that we don't believe in them, but they just may be different. So, for instance, so I'm the youngest of 6, and my dad was 42 when I was born. So there's that, as I got older, my dad was older and was of a really 2 generations away from where I was. So his thinking was very different to what I would think. And so he would have very probably narrow or older fashioned views on things. And so it's interesting because I've worked on some things and belief systems that I had subconsciously taken on from him that actually don't serve me now as a 50-year-old woman, because we're living in a very different time, from when he was. And so what I find is that if I can work with clients and blend the logic coaching, but then with a bit of the spiritual, the beliefs, what is actually driving this or what is blocking you from making this change, then it's a really beautiful experience, because we can really uncover and delve deeper into actually what that means for you. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I found a few years ago was I've always had multiple streams of income. I've always had a job, but then I've always had other things that I've had. So, investing in shares, Bitcoin. I have an app on the App Store. I had my healing business, but I also then had a full-time permanent corporate job. And so what I found a few years ago was that the corporate job was fine, but all of my ad hoc or my other things that I had going on, the abundance wasn't flowing very well. And I couldn't work out why. And so I did some work on myself and then ended up working with a healer, because sometimes I have to get out of my own way, because sometimes I can't see what it is. And we uncovered that I actually had my dad's belief that you can only have one job. You only have one job. Because years ago, fundamentally, the man brought in the money and they just had one job. So my dad worked on the railway here in New South Wales in Australia for 42 years. Now, he had different jobs through that career, but he worked for the New South Wales railway system. He had one job. And so when I realized that I had taken on that belief, or that belief then came up for me, it was a subconscious belief that I didn't necessarily want. So what we do is we then, I guess, heal the belief, but then we replace it with more positive things. Or positive things that are for me. So it's safe and possible for me to earn multiple income from multiple jobs, those sort of things. And so when we did that, then the abundance started to flow in all of the other areas. So it's a really interesting, it's quite practical, because we're actually dealing with the theta brainwave. We're actually dealing with the brainwave that everybody has. But, you just need to have that little bit of a belief of there's something a little bit bigger, or, the spiritual world is a little bit bigger in that sense. So it's an interesting way then to combine that with practical, logical coaching, because it's actually a really nice blend that then people have some real shifts, because logically they're thinking, why is this not changing? But then if we look at it from that point of view, then we can actually clear some things and actually give them a different reason. And it also then gives you that feeling of, okay, so I'm not a failure, or it's not just because of me, or it's not because I'm not trying hard enough, because we often feel that, particularly when we want to get coached with something, right? And so it's actually a nice way to then give a client, I guess, just for them to be kind to themselves, that actually you don't need to beat yourself up about this, because you might just have this unconscious belief that you actually didn't even realize.
Yeah. And that is totally a different perspective. Cause like you said, I think a lot of us go to, oh, well, I'm a failure, or, you can only focus on one thing. You don't have the energy for that. It's, I don't know if you want to call them excuses or just old labels, but instead of looking in to find out why is this not working, or most of us don't even think that there's something else. We just figure, okay, this is it. We accept it. And then you have even more blocks.
Yeah, exactly. And then you pile on to yourself, right? So, I can't do that, or it's something that I can't change, or, it must be in my DNA, or, my mum always did this. We start to make all of these excuses where actually, maybe you can change. But again, it's one of those things where, until you're ready to make that change, until you're ready to sort of look at things differently, then, you're not going to make the change until you're really ready within yourself.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say it because, yeah, how many times do you hear it's like, well, it's always been done that way? It's like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
times change. You need to evolve somehow.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that if it's always been done that way, that's the safe option, right? Like
Hmm.
a lot of people don't want to change because the fear of what would change, the fear of the unknown. We stay stuck sometimes because it's comfortable and it's safer, and that's okay. That's totally okay.
Yeah.
But then sometimes some people just get to that point where they're just like, no, I need to change it. And interestingly, I had an email from a client, a potential client that came in overnight from my website. I don't know who she is. I've never seen her name before, and she just booked in a chat with me for next week. So I messaged her and said, was really excited to see that you've booked in. Can you just talk to me a little bit? Just give me a brief overview of why you want to have a chat, because I feel like I want to be a little bit prepared
Hmm.
to have a 30-minute conversation with her. So she came back to me and she said, you've come highly recommended. And these are the things that I want to work on. And the first thing that I said to her was, well done, because the fact that you've realized that you want to make some changes and that you've actually booked in to have a chat with me, that's often the hardest step. It's just that making that decision. Once you've made that decision, then you're already on a new journey.
Yeah,
Mm,
definitely. And like you
mm,
said, you really have to want to make that change
yeah,
as well. Like I said,
yeah.
be open and want to make the change, because
Mm.
otherwise I call it, I'm sure you're familiar with the definition of insanity.
Yes. Yes.
And if you're out there and you're not, it's doing the same thing over and over and you're sitting there expecting a different result.
Different
It's
result.
not going to
Yeah.
happen. If you do the same thing, you're going to get the same, you're going to get the same result.
Yep.
So, yep. Yeah. So what advice do you have for those that are seeking for that balance between their spiritual growth and their career aspirations?
Well, I think they can coexist. I
Hmm.
absolutely think they can coexist. And if you're in the, if you're, particularly if you're in a corporate role, well, not even corporate, if you've just got a really good, great job and a career is really important to you, but you're open to that spiritual side as well, then use it to your advantage. Go and have a reading with someone, or meet, a spiritual group, or meditate, or do some research on how you can, really tune into how you're feeling from a spiritual point of view, because it'll be amazing the different guidance that you'll get if you're actually willing to look at that from then a career perspective, because you might actually be guided to do something that you didn't think that you're interested in, or you might find the courage to make a change, or find the courage to put your hand up for a promotion. There's a lot of things that then you can tap into from your spiritual side that could really help your career. Absolutely.
Yeah. And like you said, we've focused on corporate, but it's not just corporate. It's
No.
anybody. It can be small business owners. It can be your
Yeah.
average person.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter. It's a matter of having the right, I guess, support around you. And even if you don't, even if you're surrounded by people that think, oh, that's all woo woo and nonsense, doesn't mean you can't, go off and do it in your own private time and figure it out for yourself.
Absolutely. And that's the thing too, it's about finding your own path. So one of my nieces who, she is in her late 30s, she has very, very strong views around religion. So she has, and has done for a long time, very, very strong views around the angel card readings and the healing that I do. And I know how she feels about that. So when I'm around her, I don't talk about it, because I don't feel like I need to push that onto her. Like, I don't want her to push her religion onto me. So
Right.
there's that mutual respect. So I know when I'm around people who are very open to it, and I know when I'm around people that mightn't be that they're against it, but they're just not really into it. So I think you become a little, I don't know whether it's humility or you just become really smart about it. That I don't want to trigger people about that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm around people and they're not into it, then that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm not here to convert people. I'm actually just here to give people kindness and compassion. And if I can do it by talking about spiritual stuff, great. And if they don't want to, then that's fine too.
I always say it's going to resonate with who it's going to resonate with. And that's why I love judgment-free communities, because we all have our right to feel and believe and go through what we want to, what works for us. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
We're all different, and it's not going to be the same for everybody.
Absolutely. And thank goodness we're all different. Oh my gosh. I wouldn't want to have many versions of me.
That's like, yeah, boring that would be if we're all the same.
I know, it would be awful.
So can you share with us a memorable success story from your career when you're blending your practical strategies with your heartfelt support? How did that lead to a significant breakthrough for one of your clients?
So 3 years ago, when I left my last corporate job, I just had look, I had an amazing career. I had 20 plus years in the HR industry. I had incredible roles. I led incredible teams, and I looked after lots of people, lots of leaders and employees. I loved it. I really enjoyed my career. But I got to the point where it wasn't filling me with joy anymore. And so I did a lot of work on myself of what's next, what do I want to do? And it was actually really getting the courage to actually take that step and resign from a permanent, very, very well-paying job to actually then stepping into my own business. And so for me, it's been a great success. It hasn't been easy over the last 3 years. And in not this year, but the last 2 years, I've actually still used my HR experience and I've done some contract work. But this year I've had a very firm, I'm not doing any more HR contract work, because I've realized that it's actually distracted me, because it's very easy for me to step back into something that pays me really well. And but then it puts me backward, because I might do something for a few months and then I'm not working on or in my business. So I suppose it's twofold. It was leaving the corporate job and doing my own thing. But then even this year, having the courage to say no to some of that work that has come to me, because I just don't want to be distracted anymore. And it's the courage is the biggest thing for me. And it's about just digging deep and really believing that actually this is my path and my purpose, and knowing that that's what I want to do. My husband, bless him, he's the biggest support. And look, I am so lucky that I've got a husband that is very, very supportive. And, for me financially, I've always been used to bringing in money of my own. And, when you first move into your own business, it's not like the money comes straight away. And so there's an amazing book by James Clear. It's called Atomic Habits. So I'm sure some people would know about that.
I have read that. I'm familiar with that one.
And so he talks about the 1%, the 1% where you're doing something in your business or what you're working toward every day. So he says, as you would know, after 365 days, you've done 365% more than you would have done the year before. And he also talks about the fact that where people are chipping away at their business or whatever they want to achieve, and then they get that one break, but then everyone calls them an overnight success. And so my husband's advice to me always is keep hanging on, because you're one day away from being the overnight success.
I like that.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
No, and it's so true, because people see something and they think, oh, they're so successful. It's like, we all struggled. We all started somewhere.
Yeah.
You didn't wake up and just whoop, have everything,
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if we think that because we're kind of used to, I don't know, we call playing small, or we're just afraid of that success. So we look for an excuse, but it's all here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can do anything. Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of which, I know you're a big advocate for mental health. So what role would you say the mental health advocacy plays with your work?
So at the moment, actually, I'm writing a white paper. So I don't know, a white paper or a research paper in relation to mental health and wellbeing, particularly in the IT industry, because my HR career was predominantly in IT. So I know that industry. I know the way that leaders think, and I kind of know, I suppose, what type of employee they are. But what I'm doing is I'm taking it from an angle of whether senior executives and CIOs, so chief information officers, very, very senior people in organizations in IT, feel like that they're equipped to deal with people and help people in their team that may be having issues with their own mental health and well-being. And it's been very interesting. So I had this idea, started talking to a couple of people that I knew. I'm now collaborating with over 20 senior executives and globally. So not just Australia, New Zealand, but a few globally as well in relation to the mental health and wellbeing within their industry. And it's been really interesting. So I'm really excited to be putting this paper together. The outcome will what I'm hoping, I've promised them, all of the ones that I've spoken to, that it's not going to be 500 pages and there's not going to be 500 suggestions that then you'll need a mental health day to deal with it.
Right.
I want it to be sort of clear and concise, and maybe give them 2 or 3 ideas, options, actions, I suppose, that they can implement within their team or within their organization that could help them. Because it's becoming such a big thing in organisations. And here in Australia, there's actually been a law now, psychosocial hazards, as it's called, in relation to making sure that employees are psychologically safe within organisations. So there's a big push here in Australia and in New Zealand for that. So mental health is something that I'm just deeply passionate about, because if you don't feel great, then you can't be your best self. And interestingly, look, I'll share today, I have been feeling the last couple of days a bit flat because it's freezing here in Sydney at the moment. We are actually experiencing a very cold winter, and I've been a bit slack probably the last couple of months, I'll admit. I'm going to do it here on TV. That I haven't been exercising. And so I know when I don't exercise, I start to feel mentally yuck. I don't feel motivated, or I just feel a bit blah. And it takes me a while to get going in the day because I just really couldn't be bothered doing something. And so today I've said to my husband, I said, I think I think my mental health is struggling because I'm not walking. And for me, if I get up in the morning and go for a walk, I just feel completely different. My day is different. I sleep better. My body loves it. And so I've had that realization today that actually I need to literally walk the talk. I'm talking to all these senior executives and they're telling me about what they do for their mental health, and I'm writing a paper about mental health. So I need to make sure that mine is okay as well. So, it's something that is really, really close to my heart, and something that's really important because a lot of people struggle with it and a lot of people don't talk about it.
Yeah. That's true. And I've been that way myself, because I have my certain self-care exercise or walking. And when I do it, I feel so much better. But when I don't, like you said, you feel sluggish. So I do walk my talk, but we all have our moments still where, where we have to kick our own self in the rear end and get going again.
Yep. And, I'm not beating myself up about it, but I know today when I sat down and then I spoke to my husband about it, I said, I know what it is. I'm not walking in the morning. I'm not doing my walk. I know exactly what it is. I eat really healthy. I don't drink alcohol. I don't drink coffee. I love my tea. I'm a tea drinker, drink lots of water, everything, all of that. I meditate, I do all of that. But if I'm not walking, it's, moving my body, it really affects me. So at least I know. So today, I had a bit of a firm word to myself.
and it was a weird reminder too, because last time when we had you on, we were in winter, you were in summer, and you even came back for our winter special where we're all talking about Christmas. And if anyone ever watched that one, you're dressed up with your sweater, but you're sweating to death.
Even though it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm here with the jumper on going,
yeah.
oh my gosh, it's so hot.
Yeah, and we're going to be 91 today. It's my morning, your evening, but we're like total opposite ends. So it's
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
amazing. I love seeing all this come together.
yeah.
But you recently were given the opportunity, which I'm excited about too, to host the Transcend and Succeed show. Many of us that watch, or many of the viewers that watch this, know that Transcend and Succeed and Mindful Mondays, we make up the Voyage to Vitality channel. And so you're going to be sitting in for a season or two. So what led you to say yes to that opportunity?
It took me 2 seconds to decide. So when Dawn, it was really funny because, like I do coaching, and I over the last 18 months I've been trained as a professional speaker. So my ultimate goal is to travel the world and speak on stage about mental health and well-being. And it's really interesting because now that I've merged my businesses and relaunched as myself, there's been a couple of things that have actually come about. And when Dawn emailed me and said to me, I'm going to take 6 months off, feeling a bit overwhelmed, there's some things going on, I would need to make some changes, I thought, oh, she's going to ask me to do some coaching with her. I'm not joking. And then the next
Surprise.
and then the next sentence was, and I'd really love for you to be my host, to be a guest host for the next 2 seasons, so for the next 6 months on the show. Well, my response was absolutely. And I said to her, look, I've probably got 1,000 questions for you, but yes, absolutely. And the funny thing is that I thought, I think the universe is telling me that actually don't know whether, this coaching business that I do is actually where is where I'm going to end up landing, because I actually think that the universe is pushing me to do more things. And the funny thing is that I responded to her, and because I think she emailed me on the Friday, and then I responded and I didn't hear from her for like 3 days. And I'm thinking, why hasn't she come back to me? So I ended up then emailing her directly instead of replying to her email.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, oh my gosh, like it didn't come in. I didn't see it. And I was like, oh, thank goodness, because I was so worried that I hadn't heard from her. So yes, I'm very excited, very excited.
And I'm excited because that means we'll be doing some quarterly specials together.
Yeah.
And everything else too, because we've all connected. We're all kind of on the same realm, and we have a good time together. So we're all about providing education resources, but we like to have fun too. So
yeah, it's going to be amazing. What an opportunity! Like I feel really honoured and privileged that she's asked me to host her show, and I think it's just going to be amazing.
Really, I know you'll be a beautiful fit. Do you want to share with everybody a little bit? Because I know you said you already have some guest speakers lined up, so what they can look forward to.
So I've got my online business manager, who is extremely spiritual and intuitive. So she has said absolutely she'd love to be a guest. So she will share her story in relation to how she's still getting her confidence in relation to sharing what she does, and from a spiritual point of view, a little bit like where I have been as well. I've also got another guest who she works a lot with mums about, being overwhelmed, how do mums deal with trying to work, manage the children and those sort of things. So she will have lots of tips and tricks, I no doubt. I've also got somebody else who's a kinesiologist, and so it's interesting because she's on a very interesting journey at the moment. I met her a couple of years ago, and she's just came out of a very big corporate role, finance, so everything is logical to her, but she's now a kinesiologist and a breathwork specialist. And she still really struggles with that in the sense of things logically for her.
I can relate. I've always been a very heady, logical person, and that's a hard shift to blend.
Yeah. So she definitely wants to be a guest. And then there are a few others. There is a couple of authors that I think are going to be quite interested in coming onto the show. And I'm speaking to someone on Saturday morning. I don't know who she is. She's just come through and booked in some time with me to be a guest. So I don't know about her, but it'll be interesting because I definitely want to get a blend of people from Australia. You know, there'll be some people from Australia, but then it'll be interesting to see who else comes through. So it'll be, I think it's going to be an interesting crowd, I suspect.
Yep. It'll be fun. And it's funny that you mentioned that because, you know, anyone that knows me knows I have a travel background. I've been a travel agent for years. I don't ever ditch that. But with the pandemic, I focused more on self-care because people were horrified or terrified to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I realized the reason I wanted people to go away was to take better care of themselves. So I always did that. I always talked about that. I always got told, oh, you'd be a beautiful self-care coach. And that was my goal. I mean, I had started that up, but then I started connecting with people and I love being able to do this. So it's don't care whether I coach or not. I love meeting people all over the world and learning so many things and providing a platform, you know, for people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny how life just takes us on, you know, different paths and it goes where it goes.
Absolutely. And isn't it amazing? Like, I love that I'm so open to that.
Yeah.
Because again, then I think I would be stuck otherwise. So
yeah. And like you said, you have to be open to that. You have to not be afraid of change and just kind of grab a hold of what guides you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I suppose I haven't even really answered your question, but I just think it's a privilege. Like, I can't wait to meet all these different people and to interview them and to be part of their lives and their journey. Like, what a joy it's going to be. So that was why I said yes immediately. I couldn't say no to an opportunity like that.
No, it's going to be fun. But so we got a couple minutes left. So as someone dedicated to making a difference in the lives of others, what message or insight would you like to leave our audience with as they embark on their own path for growth and self-discovery?
I was talking to someone today and I said to her, did you know that the same letters in the word listen is silent? So the same letters are used in the word silent to listen. And she went silent, thought about it. And I wasn't saying that because she wasn't listening. We were talking about other people not listening and the power of actually just stopping and listening to someone. And it makes such a difference because then you, two ways. If you listen to someone, you really get what they're talking about. But also that other person then feels like they're heard. Yes. And to be heard, I think, is the most incredible gift that you can be given. So yeah, very interesting to ponder. The same letters used for the word listen is silent.
That's the first time I've ever heard that one. I know there's other ones where you can just switch them. Oh yeah. Yep. Got that one.
Yeah.
Well, Megan, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and I look forward to doing the specials with you, and I know you will be a great success taking over and co-hosting the Transcend and Succeed show. So
thank you. It's been beautiful. Love it. And I can't wait to work with you.
Oh yeah. And anybody listening to this, like I said, if you aren't even sure what angel cards are or whatever, reach out to Megan and have some time and just have a conversation. As you can tell, she's very easy to talk to, very passionate person. And it's just always such a joy to have you here. So thank you so much for joining us.
Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you everybody for listening and watching.
And everybody, we will see you next week. Have a wonderful week.